reason I chose ITI was because my younger brother went to ITI, and I watched that boy's life changed in front of my eyes, and I'm like, okay. I worked in the plant for at least 12 years, and I had 12 years experience, but I never was able to get to that operator position because I didn't have a certification, and that's what ITI gave me. Just off of my offer letter from my job that ITI placed me at, I'm able to purchase my home right now. All you have to do is apply yourself. If I could do it, anybody could do it.
This is Sports 225.
Well, my guest, Tim Brando of Fox Sports fame, who lives in the great Northwest of Louisiana, but will be going to the great white North soon enough. Never is short on opinions. So, Tim, I thought I would just start by throwing you a softball. The college football playoffs are going to stay at 4 for a while. Thoughts?
Well, I'll begin by saying I'm not surprised. I think I told you the last time we spoke that it's all about a smoke screen because these guys can't walk and chew gum at the same time. They damn sure can't do 2 deals at once. And 3 of these conferences, 3 of the 5 Power 5 conferences, have new television rights to negotiate for themselves. And because of realignment, there's a lot of concern about what they're going to be able to get in the open market for their conferences games. Those leagues being the Big Ten number 1, okay, which is going to probably get more money than the SEC got from ESPN. So they can be just a step ahead of the SEC in terms of what they can pay each of their schools. And the structure of that, we don't know what it'll be, but it's a major deal. You know, getting any new TV deal always is. Jim Delaney, when he cut his last deal with Fox, the primary rights holder, but ESPN also a rights holder, it was sort of a 60-40 deal in favor of Fox. I don't know what's going to happen. That's outside my pay grade. My guess is Fox is going to step up, and I sure hope they do because I'm working a lot of those games. But then you have the Pac-12 and the Big 12 coming up a year later. So the Big 10 has got to do its deal by the start of the 24 season, which means 22, 23, they got to get it negotiated. Pac-12, Big 12 have to get theirs done by 25. And that is a year before the final year of the current college football playoff agreement. So when all the crap took place with realignment and Oklahoma and Texas did what they did, it was a shocking move to a lot of people within intercollegiate athletics. A lot of egos were hurt, and the relationship between the commissioners now is really divided. The interesting part of it is the 2 leagues that were most impacted, the SEC and the Big 12, those 2 conference commissioners are the ones pushing for 12 teams. Both Bob Bowlesby and Greg Sankey are in lockstep. They want to go to 12. But the other commissioners are, like, hey, we don't know how we feel about all this now. Let's take our time. Let's do what we need to do for whatever reasons. Okay. Some reasons I think they just make up, especially in the case of Jim Phillips, who at the ACC has the most dire situation with his television deal that he just entered into. His conference just entered into before he got there. They're on the hook until 2035, I think it is, to ESPN on a deal that's going to make them less money than even the Big 12 makes.
Wow,
so
that's the ACC network.
They purged their network rights so they could have a cable network at a time when cable television was being cable corded. Cord cutting was taking place. It was just a bad decision on their part. Really good decision for ESPN. But that's what the presidents of the ACC schools were like. We want a network. Okay, you got your network, but your football rights and basketball rights were sold for next to nothing, and you're going to have to live with that bad deal. Jim Phillips has got a lot of work to do when it comes to that. So I guess maybe he feels like he needs that amount of time to help himself out. I guess that's what it's all about. But in the end, I will tell you, we are going to go to 12. It is going to take 4 years for us to get there. I think the other good news about this, which may be bad news to our competitors over at the Worldwide Leader, where I once worked, is that I definitely believe that we're going to have more than one network entity as a partner with the college football playoff. I think this decision to say, all right, it's over, we're not doing this, means that the exclusive negotiating period, which the current rights holder had, it will be extinguished. And that means the open market will be involved. And whether that's the company I work for or countless other networks, they will all be interested in a 12-team playoff. So it'll be a very interesting and entertaining few off seasons as we get a little bit closer to 2026.
You remember a half an hour ago when I asked you that question and I said, Tim,
well, there's a lot to it, Lee. I mean,
I know. Let me do a quick.
I'm known for long responses, but there's not a simple answer to that question. Okay.
People want to. So
and if fans get bored with the inside baseball nature of my industry, I'm sorry, but that's what's driving all this. Okay. It's about revenue. And where's the revenue coming from? It's coming from television. So,
all right. I got just to go back into that answer, which was fabulous, by the way. I just love, there's nothing better than teasing Tim. But number one, he referenced Jim Delaney. He's the former Big Ten commissioner, in case anybody didn't know that. So he's the one that he was talking about. And the other question that I want to ask you is about the Longhorn Network. But I think if I ask you that now before we go to break, I'm going to regret it. So I'm going to take the first break. He is Tim Brando, among other things. He does play-by-play of football and during this season, of course, basketball for Fox Sports. And he's on his way for Illinois, Ohio State later in the week. We got some hoops to talk about too. When we get back, let's start with the Longhorn Network. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I'll get a quicker response on that
one. No, not at all. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
Who says you need a vacation for a view like this? Or, I wish there was a place to get in shape. Try getting on the beaten path. Discover an ever-expanding network of trails and greenways. Some quintessential Southern beauty. Or romp through the woods in a magical land between the rivers. There's more to explore than you ever imagined. Beyond the swing sets. Breck, we are more than a playground.
All right, we're back on Sports 225 this week, hanging out with Tim Brando at Chateau Brando. As I said, in the Great Northwest, happens to be the Great Northwest of Shreveport/Bossier City. Tim, before I do get to the part about the Longhorn Network and how that factors in, do you know that the first week of June, actually starting May 31st, the biggest volleyball international tournament of the year is in Shreveport? And it's the USA Women's Olympic team will be there. It's called the Volleyball Nations League. And I'm booked for 8 nights. So stay thirsty, my friend. We will.
We'll have to get together.
I can't live on volleyball alone for 8 days. And for those of you who don't know, in my other life, I own and edit Volleyball Magazine, and it's all consuming. All right. So the Longhorn Network, and Tim, you correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know if I've ever asked an expert, and I don't mean to be funny. You are an expert in this. I heard that the Longhorn Network that Texas was able to get for itself the last time there was a conference expansion actually kept it from going to the Pac-12. But
yes.
And what happens now? So if you can give a little history there and maybe edify for me and then catch us up.
Well, that was a $300 million mistake by ESPN, clearly. They thought that they were going to get, a massive amount of games and a lot of high school games in the state of Texas on their airwaves. They thought they were going to get a lot of content from the Longhorn Network, not necessarily Texas athletics, but Texas high school athletics and a variety of other venues. Well, the other schools and the political nature of the great state of Texas was such that all hell broke loose within the brethren of the Big 12 Conference, and none of that was going to be made available. Okay, there were no high school games on, none of that. So they became a feature network, and I think maybe Texas would get one game from the conference, usually the game with Kansas or Kansas State, on the Longhorn Network. That was it. That was all they got. But what it did serve to do was keep the Big 12, at least at that point, intact. And it was the creation of really the executives, the programmers at Bristol, because they did not want the Pac-12 to become the first super conference and become the Pac-16. They wanted more control of it. They felt like if they owned Texas athletics from a television standpoint, that they could do that. Well, it turned into obviously not a financial venture that was in their best interests. Now what it will do, because of Texas going into the SEC, once that payoff is taken care of, and last year I think the payoff was $80 million for Texas and for Oklahoma to get out of the Big 12 contract. They have a grant of rights with that league. The grant of rights was $80 million last year. They weren't going to make that payment. That payment may be reduced next year, I think maybe to 60. Texas has the financial wherewithal to pay that by virtue of the money they make from ESPN on the Longhorn Network. So that Longhorn Network money can help Texas get out of the Big 12 and go right over to the SEC. But Oklahoma doesn't have that luxury. And Oklahoma's not going to be able to make that payment, and they don't want to make that payment. So I suspect that the Big 12 is going to have Oklahoma and Texas and the oncoming teams, okay, including possibly Houston, which, Texas has said steadfastly they would not participate in the Big 12 if Houston came in. Well, we'll see. The rubber is going to hit the road pretty soon, but schools like BYU, like Cincinnati, and others out of the American Athletic Conference are maybe going to be coming in the next 2 years. But you can put the brakes on the SEC getting both Oklahoma and Texas into their leagues as quickly as maybe you previously thought. The SEC folks were letting everybody believe that they were coming right in. That both Oklahoma and Texas would be in by next season. That is absolutely not going to happen.
Well, Central Florida is that other school. They're coming.
Yeah.
Well, the Big 12 did a masterful job of saving itself.
Bob Bowlesby was called Dead Man Walking.
Yeah.
When all that happened, the commissioner of the Big 12, and he more than acquitted himself nicely here. And that's one of the reasons why he's the forward thinker, with Sankey. Even though Sankey really pissed him off and they were at odds with one another, Bob Bowlesby sent a cease and desist letter to ESPN with rumors that maybe they were trying to, in a covert manner, steal some of his teams and put them in the American Conference. There was a lot of talk about that. No one ever admitted anything, so nothing came from it. But he was, by all corridors in the media that follow media, they thought that the Big 12 might be dead. Well, they're anything but. They're going to be just fine, with their new TV deal.
I thought they were dead. First week of September, I didn't think they had anything. Yeah. And I love the Missouri Valley, proud graduate of Southern Illinois University at Carbondale, Dos Salukis. Like the Valley is on life support now. I mean, it's just not going to happen. And I really worry. So do you think there's any chance that Texas and Oklahoma do not enter the SEC at the same time? You think it's possible Texas could make its buyout and go, and Oklahoma's left behind for another year or two because of finances?
Possibly. And I say that because Houston may want in right away. And if Houston presses the buttons to the Big 12, say, no, we've made this commitment. We're ready to come. We're going to do, they've got all that Tilburn Fertitta money, remember? And if they want in, Texas could say, well, okay, we are the hell out of here. And they have the financial capability of doing it. I don't think Oklahoma has that same physical capability. It would be a stretch for them to be able to pull it off as easily as Texas could. So you may be onto something there. It might happen, but I don't think it's happening this year. Maybe in 23, Texas could go and Oklahoma might wait another year. I know that's not the plan. That's not what the Southeastern Conference wants, but it may be what has to happen.
The Fertitta he mentioned owns a chain of restaurants that is really good food, and you could hardly go anywhere in Southwest Louisiana or all of Texas without eating at one of his restaurants. All right, Tim Brando is going to call some Big Ten basketball. There's definitely a Big Ten question there that is just begging to be asked after we get back in this break. And if you can hear in the background, you can hear that one of my dogs wants to chime in as well.
All in the dog.
Let's take this break. I'm Lee Feinsbach. It's Sports 225.
Who says you need a vacation for a view like this? Or, I wish there was a place to get in shape. Try getting on the beaten path. Discover an ever-expanding network of trails and greenways. Some quintessential southern beauty. Or romp through the woods in a magical land between the rivers. There's more to explore than you ever imagined. Beyond the swing sets. Breck, we are more than a playground.
All right, back on Sports 225, talking to Tim Brando, Timmy B, as we have all called him for years and years. His biggest job these days is as a play-by-play guy for Fox Sports, and he does an extensive football season, and now is deep in the throes of a Big Ten basketball season that sure got a lot of attention this past week because of Juwan Howard. And you must have been watching. You didn't have that game.
No.
But you must have just been aghast and almost probably happy you didn't have that game. Well, of course, you might have been off the air by then. They might have signed off. I don't know.
Honestly, I'm such a hoops aholic. The game had gotten out of hand. I had been watching it because I have the Michigan State game coming up on March 1st. So I'm always kind of scouting teams when they're not my games, but I know I've got them in the future. And I also have Ohio State and Illinois, as you mentioned at the time of this taping, in a couple of days on Thursday of this week. So I was watching it, and then the game got a little out of hand, and Providence was down double digits with about 10 minutes to play at Butler. So I flipped over to that game, and I didn't see it in real time. I saw it pop up on my phone, and then I was DVRing the game, though, so I could go back and look at the end of it. And so I did see it, albeit not in real time. Look, Lee, you and I have been around long enough to have seen a lot of wild things. All right. From Dale Brown going after Carlos Groves when he was pulling Shaquille O'Neal down at the rim, I think in the 92 tournament at the SEC tournament. And Dale going out to attack Carlos and being stopped in midstream, and multiple ejections and suspensions for the semifinal game.
I still maintain that the referee, Andre Grillo, saved Dale's life because Wade Houston, the Tennessee coach, was going to kill him.
Coming after him, yeah.
Grillo tackled Dale and pushed him up against the scorer's table and pinned him there. It was like another 4 hours before they had the post-game press conference,
I remember Pitino and Dale going at it in a regular season game at LSU in Pitino's first year at Kentucky. No. And again, it had to do with fouling. And I want to say it was Feldhouse that was going after Shaq that particular game. Anyway,
we're going down memory lane with those things. The first time that Vanderbilt and LSU played, when Eddie Fogler was the Vanderbilt coach, at the end of the game, Dale went to shake Fogler's hand. And Fogler, who later became good friends with Dale and is really good friends with John Brady, who also he had it with, looked at him and he just looked at him and F you, Dale. F you, Dale. F you, Dale. And he had sprinted out there. And oh, gosh, there was something.
Listen, it gets heated. But given the times we live in and the cesspool that is social media, everything is so blown out of proportion and gets so whack that you have to just kind of step back, pause, and say, okay, let's look at this for what it is. A couple of things. Number one, the race baiting has got to stop. It's just got to stop. We can't battle and try to reinvent debates over the Civil War and beyond every time we have an issue regarding a coach of color versus a coach that's Caucasian. That's got to stop. The revisionist history on Woody Hayes being fired versus a suspension for, first off, I don't think Danny Ford of Clemson called a timeout to tell Charlie Bauman to make sure he picked off that next pass thrown by Ohio State before Woody punched Charlie Bauman, the linebacker that picked off the pass in the Gator Bowl. Okay. Wisconsin was also culpable in this. Greg Gard called a timeout up 15 with less than 30 seconds left in the game. You got to have some self-awareness there if you're the coach. Now, was his reasoning for calling the timeout with his walk-ons on the floor while they were being pressed, was it understandable? Was it legitimate? Yes. Yes, it was. But at the same time, he clearly did not think big picture about what this was doing to the opposing team. All right. They were already dead and buried, and they were going to feel like he was rubbing their noses in it. So Gard is culpable to some extent here. The worst decision, though, made was by Juwan, who walked to the back of his line like he's not going to go shake the man's hand. He should have just kept walking out. He should have just stayed in that direction. He should have opted out like a college football player.
And let me jump in there real quick. By all accounts, Juwan Howard is a very intelligent, likable guy.
Yes, I've known Juwan since he played for Michigan, and I've known Greg Gard since he was an assistant for Bo Ryan. These are two good men, two good coaches, okay, well-meaning, but they had a bad 40 seconds. I mean, a really bad 40 seconds. Juwan, he decided to walk through that line. And as he walked through with attitude and without looking at the coach, he said, I'm going to remember that, S ends with a T, and he didn't look at the coach. So what did Greg Gard do wrong? He stopped. He should have kept walking. All right. Live to coach another day. But human emotions take over, Lee, and he stopped him, and he wanted to explain, because coaches are all insular. Hey, I'm trying to protect my young guys. I was calling a timeout. Juwan didn't want to hear any of that at that point. He didn't. So that gave Juwan the out to say, don't touch me. Don't you touch me. And now, of course, it elevates to a point where an open hand slap takes place, the most egregious of the bad choices that were made there. I think the decision for 5 games in the regular season is a good one. Be happy Phil Martelli's on your staff. He can coach you the rest of the way, and he's an awfully good coach. And for Greg Gard, I think he'll revisit that too and understand where he made mistakes. All in all, I thought it was appropriate, but we have to stop. I mean, stop trying to turn everything into a race story when in fact it's just bad decision making by 2 head basketball coaches in the heat of the battle.
As they say on Family Feud. Good answer. Good answer. He's Tim Brando. I have to tell you sometime about Phil Martelli calling my house after he read Hoop Daddy, the book, but that's another story for another day. We got to take this break. I'm Lee Feinswag. It's Sports 225.
Who says you need a vacation for a view like this? Or, I wish there was a place to get in shape. Try getting on the beaten path. Discover an ever-expanding network of trails and greenways. Some quintessential southern beauty. Or romp through the woods in a magical land between the rivers. There's more to explore than you ever imagined. Beyond the swing sets. Breck, we are more than a playground.
Coming down the home stretch of this Sports 225 with very little time left. Go to sports225.com for all the show listings of when we're on Your View, which is Cox Forum, with Tim Brando, who, just like the game that he will have called already, Illinois and Ohio State, LSU will have played basketball at Kentucky. And I don't know if that's a must win, because that's a tall task, but boy, LSU needs to do something to right the ship of a very, very strange, enigmatic basketball team. Is that fair, Tim?
That's fair. I think it all started with the loss of their guard, the point guard. Xavier I think he's the straw that stirs the drink for them. When they lost him and it forced the younger player to move to the point, they were sort of lost. It was basically a spread the floor and play one-on-one basketball team, which was not really good from an offensive standpoint for Will's club. They relied way too heavily on their defense to create turnovers and get easy buckets. Their offense, from a half-court standpoint, became stagnant. But listen, they have the ability, Lee, against a team like Kentucky. I know this isn't playing until after the game's over, but Kentucky is maybe just the kind of team they want to play, because they like to get up and down the floor, which enables LSU to be more in a comfort zone. So I think, we might find lightning in a bottle with that game. I know it's a repeat game and it's a revenge game for Calipari's club, and he's got great guards, just great guards. And Sheboy's maybe the most valuable player in the league, but I still think they're fine. I don't think it's a must win. They're going to be in the tournament, probably wind up in an 8-9 game and then catch a 1 seed in round 2.
I think that's perfect. Tim Brando, he's so good on so many subjects. If you're just tuning in, you missed so much. Tim, this was a fantastic episode of Sports 225, and I thank you for your time and always enjoy the visit.
All the best. I'll see you up here for volleyball. And I remember it is side out. Finds one.
This is Sports 225. Thanks for watching.
At carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay,